know,
Sorry, Russ.
that 45 years ago, we were in the locker room, not to the day, but somewhat later, and we were euphoric because we had beaten Glassboro with a tremendous hitting performance and, of course, an outstanding pitching performance. Despite the fact that I'm finding out now that half of my team was loaded.
Gabe, you don't realize, Mark and I just figured it out. Nobody could catch the ball. So in the first 3 innings when they got up 6-0, I had to change my attack. And I ended up with 12 strikeouts, so the last 6 innings is when everybody got struck out. I let him hit them to people that weren't there.
We gave him a start, that's all. You felt sorry for him.
I went out in the 3rd inning and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but we just didn't have any more pitching. And I went out to Bill and I said, Bill, he said, wow, these guys are really 6-0. We got to do something about this. And Bill takes his glasses off and cleans his glasses. And he says, don't sweat it, Coach. I'm only warming up. Well, the interesting thing about it was the rest of the ball game. It was a game. They were so eager to hit, and he had them swinging at balls in the dirt. And he was just masterful, always in control. And but we came back, as you know, we went into the locker room, and everybody was saying, "Wait till next year, boy! Wait till next year, wait till next year." And I got up, sort of like now, and I said I had an announcement to make, and told them that I was resigning as the baseball coach, and that sort of put a damper on things. It was very very emotional, and for me. I don't know whether I mentioned at the time, but I had always dreamed about being a baseball coach. And in my career, up until the time here, it had always avoided me. I had jobs, I coached, as you know, even though Ross thinks I went to Canada to escape the draft.
Nova Scotia, I mean,
they have a draft?
The fact of the matter was I went there to coach Canadian football because they wanted an American to help the transition from English rugby to American football at the university. So I was hired as the head football coach and the head basketball coach and the JV basketball coach. And I had 9 part-time coaches on intercollegiate sports, on my staff. And I got paid $2,500 for my position. And I stayed there 3 years. I came back to the States. Now I figured I had the credentials because prior to going up there, I was not a name athlete. I certainly couldn't qualify for a head coaching job in terms of my size. And so I had a difficult time getting a coaching job again. So I went and I coached junior high school basketball and high school basketball again before coming to William-Paterson. I came to William-Paterson because I wanted to be at a teacher's college. I decided that that's where I was going to spend my life and help prepare teachers. And so when I had the chance, I met Ken Wolf over at NYU, and he asked me to come over and be his assistant. And so, as you know, that's where many of you got to know me. I was assistant baseball coach, always dreaming about someday I was going to be the baseball coach. And of course I coached the JV basketball teams here and started cross country, which was also one of my loves. And so when I finally got the chance, and this is what a lot of people don't know, Dr. DeShaw, who was the athletic department chairperson at the time, offered me the basketball job, the head basketball job. And I knew what basketball meant to Ken Wolf. I also knew how Ken affected many of his players. But I just felt, out of loyalty to Ken, I couldn't take the head basketball job away from him. And so I said, if you wanted to do a head coaching job, I said, I'll take the baseball team. And so that was when I was appointed head baseball coach. So the job that I always dreamed of was our season, the one we had together. And if you look at it, you know, you say, oh, yeah, we won 6 and we lost 9. And we had a losing season. But you know, here we are 45 years later. And you look around and you realize, you know, it wasn't a losing season. It isn't the score. I know it sounds trite. But, you know, I have to disagree with Lombardi when he said winning is everything. Winning is good, there's no doubt about it. But you know, playing the game is what matters. And Mark and I have talked about this a lot, and something I've said repeated over the years. We believe that you live your life the way you played the game. You live your life the way you played the game. And if you look back at your lives and the things that you've done and how many of the elements of what you did, you know, when you were that young, daring athlete, how you prepared yourself, what you did, your desire, your enthusiasm, and you carry all those things with you, then people bring on other tasks. Mike and I were just saying, and we both agree, I always felt that my background in sports gave me an edge over people who didn't have this. I honestly felt that, wherever I was. Because I played sports, I had that little extra edge. And you know, not to tell war stories, but when I was in the service, I was 22 years old, and I was given a rifle platoon, and I now have to tell you, if anybody was ever unprepared for the job, to go into combat, being in command of 40 men, and I just made the platoon my team, and I just did what I would do, and I am still in contact with platoon members. There aren't too many of us left, as you know, from World War II, but I am still in contact. And I had one of my platoon sergeants called me 2 or 3 years ago, and he said, I want to come down and see you one more time. And he said that one thing he never forgot was the way I treated the men. And you know what? I treated the men the way I've always treated my players. And there's always been, and I just want you to know this, every one of you, I respected you for your contribution to our team. You know, we had difficulty filling all the positions on any given day. And yet we went through that. And so that was not a losing season. For me, that was the culmination of a boyhood dream. Okay? And one more thing, just to show you, I loved baseball, and I still love baseball. I'm a little disenchanted about some of the things that are happening, but in 1927, my father took me to the Yankee Stadium to see the 27 Yankees. And you know, there are not that many people around who saw the 27 Yankees. I remember, I only remember one person from that game, and that was Babe Ruth. I guess because he probably been pointed out so many times, my father probably said, that's Babe Ruth, that's Babe Ruth. So I remember this one man, and the only thing I remember about Babe Ruth was that his glove was very small. Now here's the greatest, probably the greatest hitter of all times, and what did I notice? I noticed that he had a small glove on his hand. And 27, that started baseball. I didn't start playing baseball until I was about 12, and my father introduced me to the game. My father was a pitcher, and he pitched a lot like Bill. He had this huge curveball. He had this huge curveball, and he used to pitch at the church outings, and he always bragged about his curve. He said, oh, they called it a hook. And if you threw the hook, and the hook would come up and start out as going at the batter's head, and then it was one of these lazy things, sort of like the pitch I threw last year, you know, the dying swan. But in any event, got interested, and I was going to be a pitcher like my father. And at the time, you know, I can't tell you what I weighed, but I never had very much weight going for me, and it didn't take me long. You know, I became an infielder. I played second base. You know, I had the arm that fit that, certainly not shortstop. And I played rec league ball, and I was a sandlot ball player. And even in those days, I sort of prepared for coming to William Patterson. by cleaning rocks off the field and raking the field. And there's a group of, there was a Scottish club that used to throw these weighted quoits. I don't know if you've ever seen them, the round quoits, they're weighted. And they would throw them, and they had rakes and hoes and I gotta be careful with that word. Shovels, and we used to borrow it, and we would clean up all at the ball field, and then we would play ball. And when I came to William Patterson to coach baseball, we did exactly the same thing, and many of you remember. It was not unusual to rake the mound and to fill in the holes at the batter's box because nobody took care of the field except us. So, this story. Now, one other thing. In 1936, I was in junior high school, and I had a very good friend of mine who was subsequently killed with the Marines on Saipan. And we went down to opening the first game of the World Series in 1936, the Yankees against the Giants. And we stood on the bleacher line, and we then got the idea, wouldn't it be great to be the first one on line? My mother would not let me go down and stand in line in the Bronx for the night before. So in 36 we saw the Giants, and in 37 we saw the Yanks and Giants again. In 38 we saw the Yanks and the Cubs. One game. The World Series tickets were $1.10. Okay, and subway ride from Yonkers was 20 cents if you walked to the city line. So we saved our pennies, and we went in 36, one game, 37, 38, 39. And then the Yanks didn't win in 49, but they won in 50, and they started another one of their streaks. But I didn't go I went to Fordham in 1940, and in 1941, I guess they played the Dodgers. In 42, they played the Cards. I missed the 1941 World Series because I was afraid that the Jesuits would throw me out of Fordham for cutting class, so I didn't have the guts to go to the game. But the next year, I was in the service, and I went back and I saw the 42 series against the Cards, and then in 43 I was in uniform, and they let the GIs go to the front of the line, and the GIs got in. Believe it or not, they didn't let the GIs in free. It was $1 to get into the game, but they put the GIs all went to the head of the line, and we were all lined up, all the guys in uniform, and they took sections of us, and they said, you go to gate here, and you go to gate there, and you go to gate there, and the gate I went to, I happened to be the first one online. And when I look at my ticket, I got the #1 ticket to the 1943 World Series. So it shows you in terms of dreams, where I always dreamed about going down there and being #1, and I end up being #1, and it all depended on which gate you were at and how they had. So I was going to bring and I really forgot this morning to put it in my wallet. But I promise next time we get together, I'll bring that #1 that you did at 43. Sure. Anyway, baseball, baseball. There's just something about it that it's extra special. And I suppose I'm the kind of guy, whatever season it is, that's the sport I love. But there is something special about it. No more. Okay, thank you. I used to tell my students, I'm never finished. I never finished a lecture. They would get up and start folding, how the kids, about 5 minutes before the bell rings, they're folding their notebooks. And then after a while, and I would still be talking, and I said, I've never finished. And I say, when I finally I'm in the casket, and they come down and they're going to put that lid down, I'm going to stand up and say, wait a minute, I'm not finished. But I want to thank Tony for his, the assistance. He's been in contact with you guys, since last year. Yet last year was really a wonderful, wonderful time, for me. What a thrill, what a thrill to get out there and throw the ball. And that's why we're not repeating it. I'm not repeating it. I told everyone, unless I'm still around when I'm 90. When I'm 90, that gives me 5 more years. If I can make it to 90, then Tony, you can set me up for
another strike.
No, but Tony worked very hard in this, and you know, the fact that we're all together, Tony deserves a great deal of credit.
My wife always says to me, how many years did all you guys play for Gabe? I said, what? Because that's all she hears about was 1960. She just cannot believe 1 year spawned, you know, all of this and all the enthusiasm and etc.
Well, as an outsider to the 62 baseball team, I ran cross country, and Dr. Vitalone was always there at every one of our meets at home, out on that hairpin turn, and I'll never ever forget that encouragement that we got coming around that turn, telling us where they were, where we were, how we needed to go, and you know, not a baseball player, but I still look up to Doc.
Well, you know, John, the cross country, I ran cross country at Fordham, and it was the only varsity award that I ever got in my life, and I won my freshman numerals at Fordham, and I was very, very, very proud of that because I was not a varsity type athlete. And we used to run in Van Cortlandt Park, and the coach that I had was Bob Gegengat. He later coached at Yale, and he also coached the Olympics in track. He used to stand as you come off the hill, the last hill, at the flats, where you come across the flats, then toward the finish line. You had about a half-mile sprint from where you came down the hill, and the coach was there. And I can remember what a lift it was to see him there, and you know, call you by name, and you'd come by, and it's sort of that last half mile wasn't as tough as it might have been. But here, since I built the course, and my basketball players who helped me, we cut it through the woods. We had the toughest 5-mile course in the world. I mean, over streams, I mean, including the hunters that were out there on Saturday morning. We used to have to go with the megaphone and clear the hunters out of the woods on a Saturday morning. So it was going to be a Now, we had a series of circles through the woods. And of course, when the runners, cross-country runners, and I knew where all these key spots were, where they would have to cross a certain spot. So they would go out and they'd run for about a mile, and I would be standing there cheering them. And then they'd go for another half a mile, and I would be standing there cheering them. And nobody could ever figure out how I could get to all of these places. But I was never at the finish line.
Right.
I was never at the finish line. It was always been.
But you were at the more important places.
Well, thank you for remembering that, but it was fun.
I still hear your voice. I still hear your voice. And you're still running, right? Still doing the Olympics, Senior Olympics, or
I'm in Kentucky in June for the Senior Olympics, right?
Yeah, I'm running, and I'm kind of enthusiastic because I'm going to be in the.
What events? What events?
I'm going to run the 100, the 200, the 400, and the shot put. I qualified for those 4 in the state, and so and I finally talked my wife into running, and my wife's in a different age class. Of course, I always have to say that. But my wife is in 75-year-old age class, and I encouraged her to run the 100 and the 200, and she won a gold medal in New Jersey in both the 100 and the 200. So now we're both entering in the nationals at Louisville, the University.
This summer?
Yeah, June, the end of June.
I don't know how he ever caught his wife if she runs that fast.
That's why you stayed at the finish line.
Listen to this about Gabe's daughter.
You tell her.
No, you insist, go ahead.
50 years ago, I signed my contract at William Patterson College, and it was August of 1957. And, you know, it's sort of a nice number, 50 years. And this year, my daughter applied for a job at William Patterson College in the special ed department. And we found out last week she was accepted and will be teaching as an assistant professor in the special ed department.
Oh, wow.